Welcome to Module 4 of the Small Business 101 webinar series. This module is all about understanding the government regulations that are out there and ensuring that you understand which ones apply to your business to ensure that you are in compliance. With this module, you will protect yourself, your business, your employees, and your customers. This is the fourth module of 10 that complete the Small Business 101 webinar series. The Small Business 101 series will get you started with some of the most important information you need to know as a startup entrepreneur. The goal of this module is to figure out if you are in compliance with government regulations and requirements. In the last module, we walked through the business structure that you should be using for your business. Now that we have decided on our structure, we need to understand the relevant regulations that apply. If we avoid this, we are risking our business and ourselves personally to penalties. Also, we are neglecting the safety of our workers and customers as the regulations primarily are there to protect people. A common mistake that an entrepreneur makes at this stage is not doing their due diligence. With so many moving parts, it is easy to overlook the importance of researching the regulations and then doing the work to ensure that you are in compliance. But if this isn't done up front, missing this step can be disastrous to your business. Let's get started in figuring out what compliance your business needs. To do this, we're going to talk about the following topics: the purpose of regulations, the process of compliance, and review of the main categories and regulations within them. The purpose of regulations. They are not just there for extra paperwork, and they have been put in place for good reasons. The process of compliance. This can seem overwhelming. So, how to get started? And review of the main categories and regulations within them. This will walk through some of the high-level details, and links for further information is provided in the resource guide. This will give you an overview of the checklist of regulations that you need to follow up on and to begin your compliance work. What is the purpose of the regulations? The primary purpose of the regulations is protection. This is protection of your consumer to ensure that they are buying what they think they are buying and that the product will not injure them in any way. There are regulations to protect your employee in terms of fair treatment and human rights, as well as protecting them from workplace injury. There are regulations to protect the business, such as intellectual property, that will be covered in Module 9. And there is a taxation component, but this is definitely a secondary purpose. Compliance doesn't have to be overwhelming. By going through this module, you will be able to identify what are the most likely regulations that you need to do more work on. Once you shortlist the regulations that you need information on, you can follow the simple process. Ask. Contact Enterprise Toronto, who will be able to answer any questions about specific regulations, or use the resource guide links to do some additional resource yourself. Check. Learn about what paperwork and identification is needed for any licenses or filing process that is needed. Gather this information and the necessary documentation. And finally, obtain. Move forward in getting the documentation and getting this off your to-do list. There is a regulation checklist to help you in your time management and helping in ensuring that you are in compliance. The main regulation categories. Now let's jump into some of the details of these regulations. The main categories of regulations are employee, product-related, advertising regulations, municipal regulations, and provincial regulations. We're going to cover each of these main areas. Business structures and intellectual property, also known as IP, are reviewed in depth in Module 3 and 9, so they are not covered in this module. Employee regulations. The employee regulations that we'll be covering are employee standards and workplace safety and insurance. Employment standards are regulations that apply to all employers, no matter how big or small. The employment standards are dictated by province, but in general terms, they outline the hours of work, including a minimum and maximum wages, the holidays, time off, the contract versus employment relationship, and termination. In Ontario, the maximum amount of hours that someone can work in a day is 8 hours and a maximum of 48 hours in a week. However, this can be different if in writing between the employer and employee. Minimum wages are also dictated by province, and there is a student minimum, liquor service serving minimum, and a general minimum wage that is continually changing to address the cost of living. Holidays and leave are also regulated. There are statutory holidays that all employees are eligible to have off with pay. If an employee does have to work, they must be paid a premium for their time that day or be given another day of holidays in lieu. Employees are also entitled to 2 weeks of paid vacation for each 12 months of work. There are also personal medical leave, family leave, and parental leave regulations. There are also regulations regarding termination, including the need to give a minimum of 2 weeks' notice and what severance is needed to be paid. When terminating an employee, it is important to log all activities and to avoid anything that could be construed as unjust dismissal. Workplace Safety and Insurance, also known as WSIB. Workplace safety and insurance is designed to protect the employees from dangerous situations and to financially compensate them if something does happen. An employer has both a duty of care and a standard of care to their employees. They must go above and beyond to make sure that their employees have a healthy and safe place to work, provide safety gear and equipment at all work sites, and that they provide training for the employees to help in accident prevention. The Workplace Safety Insurance Board has a central insurance program to help protect employees when there are accidents, as well as to perform audits at workplaces to ensure that the duty of care is being met. Employers are mandated to pay into this insurance or have the same or better insurance for their employees. Product-related regulations. The main product-related regulations that we will cover are consumer labeling and packaging, drug regulations, medical devices, and natural health products. Consumer packaging and labeling. These regulations apply to anyone with a product. Consumer packaging and labeling regulations specifically are designed to protect the consumer and ensure that they are provided with the information that they need in order to make educated purchasing decisions. There are a few key pieces of this regulation. First, there cannot be any incorrect or misleading information on packaging. For instance, the wrong amount of ingredients or the wrong ingredient can't be on the packaging. Secondly, the product information must be bilingual, so both in French and English. Thirdly, there must be basic labeling information, which is standardized by industry and must use metric measurements and identify the organization that is accountable for the product. Then there are further regulations within some niche industries. Drug products. Drug products have more significant regulations than textiles or any other products, as there is a higher risk of injury to consumers. The regulations include labeling and open information on recalls, research, and record keeping, manufacturing practices, specific regulations by drug types, and regulations on new drugs. Medical devices. Medical devices have their own regulations, again in order to ensure that the people that are using them are safe. All manufacturing and design must be focused on safety. The regulations include a long list of labeling requirements, and some medical devices have advertising restrictions on them, including contraceptives. When introducing a new medical device, a license needs to be requested by the ministry, with different information requirements depending on the class of the medical device. A medical device can be suspended at any time, and there is an annual obligation to inform and update the ministry of any changes in the information about the device. All natural and non-prescription health products need to have a product license, and any website that sells these products also needs to have a site license. To get a license and keep it, a few things are needed: details about the ingredients and details of the dosage, evidence that it works and is safe. Labeling must include a lot of detailed information. Labeling must include a lot of detailed information, and manufacturing of the product must demonstrate good practices. Again, all of these regulations are for the safety of the consumer. Advertising regulations. Next is advertising regulations. These are also there to protect the consumer from false claims or misleading information. Advertising regulations can be summed up with truth, fairness, and accuracy. Truth and accuracy. This includes what you say, and the overall impression of the advertising must be true. It also includes information that has been omitted, as this is still not the whole truth. Scientific studies or testimonials must also be true within the ads. Fairness. Using deceptive advertising tactics to draw in customers, but not to deliver on the promise, is not permitted. This includes guarantees and pricing that is not what is actually available. There are additional requirements in terms of marketing to children or minors as well. Municipal and provincial regulations. The last category that we are going to cover are these. Municipal regulations include licensing and permits. There is a large number of businesses and individuals who need to have municipal licenses and permits. The overarching types are people or businesses that work with building infrastructure, including HVAC, insulation, building cleaning, and any other trades person. People or businesses that sell food or beverages or alcohol. People or businesses that sell cigarettes. People or businesses working with animals. Thrift stores, pawn shops, and auction businesses. Transportation-related businesses, and holistic centers. Each license needs to be kept current through a renewal process. The complete list can be found through the link on the resource guide, as well as Enterprise Toronto can assist in giving you this information. Municipal and provincial permits. The most common municipal permits that are requested include building permits. These are either small or large ones, and there is a process to go through for this. Preliminary zoning review is another process that is common to rezone the property of a business or for the primary and preliminary work for a development. There are also sign permits for any of the signs for your business or for your advertising. Other bylaws are by the ward within the city and can change. For instance, some wards are now able to raise chickens, which was passed in 2017. Finally, there are also provincial licenses and permits that you may need to obtain. As most licenses and permits are based on the type of business you have and where it is, please refer to Enterprise Toronto first. There is a regulation resource guide to the government links that walk you through all of these regulations in detail that have been outlined today. If you have identified that a regulation pertains to your business, make sure that you use a resource guide to learn more and start the process of complying. Module 4 is all about government regulations and complying with them. We went through why they are important, the way to comply, and some of the main categories of regulations that you need to be aware of. Plus, you now have the checklist and resource guide to use. Now you know if you are in compliance with government regulations and requirements. Module 4 is the fourth of 10 modules for the Small Business 101 webinar series. Let's get going.